Naval Ravikant once said a line that hit the industry like a cold splash of water. He said, all the American AI companies talk about sharing the wealth, but all the top open source models are Chinese, end quote. And this week, that didn't just feel like a guess, it felt more like a prophecy. While the West was busy watching XAI updates and refreshing OpenAI's status page, China released 5 frontier-grade models in a single 7-day window. If you're, of course, a developer, right now, you aren't just keeping up. You're basically trying to stay dry in a rainstorm of code. Let's look at the names so we don't miss the scale of what just has taken place. Kimi K2.5 from Moonshot AI, GLM 5 from Zippo AI, Qwen 3.5 from Alibaba, Duobao 2 and Seedance 2.0 from ByteDance, and the M2.5 update from Minimax. 5 major releases, 1 week. In the United States, we measure progress by how human a chatbot kind of feels. But in China, they're measuring it by worker capacity. The pattern here is quite unmistakable. They are shipping open weights that are multimodal by default and remarkably cheap to run. First, let's start with Moonshot's Kimi K2.5. This is a manager and not just a mere chatbot. Imagine you're running a massive logistics company. Most AI today is like having one very smart intern who can answer 1 email at a time. Kimi K2.5 is more like having a swarm of 100 specialized floor managers. One checks the inventory, another tracks the trucks, and of course, a third handles the invoices, all happening simultaneously. Then, of course, Kimi uses a sparse expert architecture with 1 trillion parameters in total. But it only wakes up 32 billion at a time. It's the difference between hiring a specialist for every problem versus trying to find one guy who knows everything about everything. It's moving the goalpost pretty much from the best answer to the best worker. I think we figured that out by now. Then, of course, there's Zippo's GLM 5. Zippo is moving the needle from vibe coding, where the computer just guesses the next line, to agentic engineering. We're talking about a model trained on 28.5 trillion pieces of data, my friends. More importantly, it's built to run on domestic Chinese hardware, specifically Huawei Ascend 910C chips. This is a direct response to the Western export controls that we had covered on front page earlier. The goal is a high-functioning system that operates independently of Washington's supply chain. In fact, GLM-5 has already cracked a 50 on the intelligence index, outperforming Gemini 3 Pro and GPT 5.2 Codex in administrative and long-horizon agent tasks. Then at number 3 is Alibaba's Qwen 3.5, the big shift, which is native multimodal support. Not an add-on, not a patchwork anymore, built into the next generation Qwen line itself. Reports around the release window pointed to multiple sizes, including 9 billion and 35 billion variants, and Qwen's next architecture direction showing up via developer pull requests and tooling support. The translation to all of that? Qwen is trying to be the default open enterprise workhorse, the model you can ship everywhere, cheaply across stacks. But then, you know the moment, which is the magnum opus story, which is ByteDance. Most people still think of them as the TikTok company. But the reality is that ByteDance is becoming the master of inference economics. With Duobao 2 and Seedance 2.0, they are pushing video generation to a level of physical realism that makes Western versions look like, well, claymation. And because they own the distribution, TikTok and Douyin, they can ship these capabilities to hundreds of millions of users instantly. And of course, finally, let's talk about Minimax. Minimax has been signaling new iterations in its models, lying right in the same launch window. With the market watching for coding-focused improvements, and of course, the meta point is quite simple. China is trying to win by flooding the field, so builders always have a good enough model that is cheap, openish, and fast to ship. Now, of course, consider the physical reality. AI is essentially an industrial process that turns electricity into intelligence. And while the West argues about grid capacity, China is building power at a staggering rate. In 2025 alone, they added 430 gigawatts of solar and wind. To put that in perspective, that is twice Germany's entire power generation capacity. Wow. And that too was added in a single year. China is scaling the manufacturing. It is scaling the power. And of course, the chips at a speed that turns the frontier gap into a memory. It's like everyone is arguing over who has the best car, while China is very busy building a 12-lane highway. And here, of course, as always, is the front page take. So if you're ready for it, here we go. So has China surpassed the United States? If you measure by closed labs and safety papers, maybe not. But if you measure by actually putting top-tier intelligence into the hands of developers for pennies, the answer is getting quite uncomfortable. China isn't just catching up. They are actually now starting to change the rules. They are building a stack that is open enough to spread and fast enough to keep the West in a permanent state of reaction. Very interesting. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think I am.